Why, hello there. Thanks so much for joining us for the Long Comics Book Club, a bi-weekly podcast about long comics, also known as manga and graphic novels. My name is Shane, and I'm the older brother. I'm joined by Spence, the younger brother. Spence, say hello to the folks at home.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
If you're new to the show, thanks for coming along for the ride. For the first half of the show, we'll be talking about the long comic we read over the past 2 weeks. Today, that is Hat Atelier. We'll give our reactions, takeaways, discussion points, book club things. And for the second part of the show, we'll be chatting about some of the other visual media we've consumed recently. To make sure you avoid spoilers, we'll include time codes in the episode description. Of course, we'll then end the show with Spence introducing the next long comic, which will come out on March 15th. To be notified of when the podcast is out, you can follow our Blue Sky or Instagram at Long Comics Book Club. On that page, you can also find a link to our Discord to join in the conversation, and we also have all of these links on our link tree. One of those links is to VesperiaComics.com, because Spencer, of course, is the owner and proprietor of Vesperia Comics, not just an online store, but physically located at 1935 West Broadway in Vancouver, British Columbia. Spence, any updates from the shop?
Yeah, actually, earlier today we finally got our big Viz Media shipment came in. So that's Viz Media, most notably handles Shonen Jump, among other stuff. We had some issues getting that set up at first, but that's over with. So now we have all the from like Dragon Ball and like Dragon Ball and Death Note and old classics like that, up to like got some Dan and Free Ren and Sakamoto Days, new stuff as well. The new hotness, as it were.
That's very exciting. I remember us talking about this at the last podcast, that you had finally got access to it, and so now that shipment has arrived. So
yes.
Great news. If those sound like some titles that you're interested in, you can either order online at VesperiaComics.com, or you can visit Spence in person, again located in Vancouver, British Columbia. That is the number one place to go pick up manga and comics. Vesperia Comics was the inspiration for starting this podcast, as I have stepped away for a lengthy time from manga and graphic novels, and so this is my re-education and reintroduction to the art form. And so far, this is episode 4. So far, so good. Been really enjoying a lot of the reads that we've had, and this is now on to our second manga. So, speaking of which, we're going to dive into our conversation about the long comic that we read over the past 2 weeks, which again was Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama, illustrated and written by Kamome Shirahama. To start out with a plot summary, do you want to take a swing at it, or do you want, again, to make sure that we give some context? This was just the first volume that we read.
Yes. So it very much was not the whole story. And definitely, like, with graphic novels, it's pretty much easier to like find single things, but definitely with manga, I was noticing like there aren't all that many a single story in one volume. We'll definitely have plenty of those, but it's kind of going to be inevitable that like part ones are going to be a large part of whenever we're doing manga stuff.
But as long as it's part 1, not volume 7, we'll be able to make our way through. We'll have the context that we need. And I was reading about how Hat Atelier, it is on, I want to say number 13, volume 13 maybe, but that it is also ongoing. So this is very much an introduction, and as Spence mentioned in the last podcast.
I think it's English release is up to 12, 13 is the Japanese release.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I should probably check that before committing to anything, but hey.
That's okay. The main thing is to know it's somewhere above 10, and that we're just talking about number 1 today. And so the plot summary is that we're introduced to I was going to say the world. We don't know the name of this world, but we meet Coco. Witches, So it's an introduction to Coco, and Coco entering the world of magic and learning about the magical system in place and starting to follow her journey. I think that's a fairly generic description, but I think that's also appropriate as well. I think that it's that's the point of the first volume, is to be an introduction. So I'm happy with that. Starting from this point forward, I guess we'll get into spoilers from here, but that again, it's one of those things that I always like to give reaction and recommendation off the start, which is that this is a really nice introduction to, I would say, manga probably from any age.
Like the first time I ever read one, I bought a copy of it at a garage sale from like a 6-year-old girl selling her old books. So like clearly people of any age.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
meant to be welcoming in. I was gonna call it sort of the, let's say I was gonna call it 21st century Kiki's delivery service, where
Yeah,
it's a
that's
wonderful story. I can imagine this sort of, depending on where it goes from here, being the kind of timeless thing, and that it is, I mean, a witch, therefore crosses over with Kiki's pretty clearly,
yeah.
but that it's a really nice casual read, the first volume, really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Not super emotionally intense, not super hard into any particular direction. Just a nice fairy tale is the way I
Yeah.
would describe that.
Yeah. Fairy tale is definitely the like vibe they're going for.
It is important to clarify we are talking about fairy tale as in mystical and fantasy and not the
Yeah.
anime. Because
Fairy tale spelled Tale.
yeah, because that is a very opposite direction, and I wouldn't recommend that for anyone. And that's an important
Despite the
because
fact
of
you've watched how many episodes of it?
because we are I think further to the point where it's where you get in deep enough, then you feel like you have to kind of keep watching, even as you see the train come off the rails.
Yeah.
But we're not going to burden everyone with hearing about fairy tale and its terrible descent into awful exploitation. But we'll instead focus Witch Hat, fun read, great as an entryway, including for younger audiences as well.
Yeah.
I am also going to call it Witch Hat from here on. I don't like saying the word atelier.
Atelier.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. It's a weird one too, because like I definitely between recommending it to you or like setting it up last week and actually reading it again this time, I 100% thought the main character's name was Atelier. I forgot.
Interesting.
Okay, what was her name? Yeah.
You thought her name was Workshop in French.
Yeah, well, hey.
That's it would make more sense if it was Witch Hat Coco. I think that's probably a better name.
Yeah.
I don't love the use of atelier. I understand maybe it's to sort of introduce a fantasy element or maybe to try and suggest that this is set in Europe. I don't really get it. It's a weird choice.
Is the like English title is the Japanese title like Japanese for Witch Hat Workshop? Because I know that's a classic thing often like when anime and stuff's trying to be cool with like when they would put English words and they have to translate it into English, they'll switch it to French. Like in Persona 3, there's a character named Mitsuru who like in the Japanese, she's always like peppers all her language with English phrases, but then when they had to translate that to English, they changed that all to French.
That's so annoying. Let me look this up briefly. Is Witch Hat Workshop the real name? Yeah, it is.
Okay, so still just French and
Boo.
Japanese as well.
Interest.
Yeah.
I mean, to each their
Togari
own.
Boshino Atelier. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. The Japanese into the French.
Yeah.
I think that I will not hold the name against it. I like the name Witch Hat. I understand that it's Witch Hat adds something. Atelier is a weird choice, but I understand it adds like a little bit of fantasy whimsy to it. Maybe I just don't like saying the word atelier lots.
Okay. Well, we spent the last 5 minutes talking about the word, so I guess we can move on.
Yeah. Attempt failed. I mean, the last thing I'll say is that I'll take this over any of the word soup nonsense anime titles I've been seeing recently. I'm just so sick of it that everything has to be 10 words long.
Oh, yeah.
And I immediately...
Yeah, we're glad it's not called, oh no, I learned magic is just drawing, and then I turned my mother to stone, so now I have to become a witch.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. That's a really great description, though. And I could imagine that if they were writing it now, that would be what they would say, that's what your title has to be. So terrible.
That's
But
honestly that's more of a light novel problem. Manga's actually pretty good about not being like that. It's light novels that are have those terrible titles, and then
mm,
then when those get often light novels then get turned into manga, then turned into anime. So
mhm,
yeah,
got it. Okay. But Witch Hat, I think, is great. It feels like a classic story. It feels like a classic start. Like you were just saying, I learned magic, turned my mom into stone. You get introduced to this world at the same time she does. And that it then holds our hand, walks us through meeting Quiffrey and the other students. And I appreciated all of that it wasn't super dense and complicated and trying to be over the top, but that it feels fun and excitable for her. And it is the magical, what's that genre? Is this magical girl? That would
it's
be,
magical. It's magical school would be the genre.
oh, that's funny. What is magical girl then?
Like magical girls are like the like we transform into like pretty outfits to fight evil. And
Okay,
so like Sailor Moon or
right.
Madoka or yeah, this is
Okay,
magical school. So like
magical school.
Harry Potter's obviously the most famous example, but there's like Western stuff like Wisteria and or there's anime stuff to it, like Wisteria or Mabu Raho. I don't know. There's some random weird ones.
I'll take your word for it. I'm thinking Artemis Fowl, Percy Jackson,
Oh yeah, those would
all of
also.
those young adult
Yes,
novels.
absolutely.
Okay,
Those yeah, those
cool.
would probably be better than the random obscure ones I was dropping.
That's okay. I mean, it's good that we each have our different terms of reference, but uh yeah, in terms of plot, I think that it's fairly straightforward, which is nice. It is really meant to be this introduction. I think Coco is an easy character to read into. She's a pretty straightforward, happy, bubbly little girl who's got that naive positivity going, which I think
Yeah.
is great. It gives those solid Naruto slash Sasuke vibes when she meets. Oh, I'm gonna
Oh
get her
yeah.
name wrong. Agate? Is that
Yeah,
right?
sure. That sounds right.
So, I mean, that's also, I think, in part because it's pretty clear Coco, I think, is blonde and Agate is dark haired. So,
Yeah. But it's
classic
also
Naruto
great too because
Sasuke
what's
vibes.
the third girl at the workshop? Because it's the classic anime trio of cool one, um, yeah, like peppy one, cool one, and girl. And like they're all
Mm,
girls, but like the third one is more girl than the other two.
right. Yeah, that you sort of have all these. I think that's part of what's nice about this as a entryway for lots of people would be that it is hitting a lot of those tropes, and it's just that it's doing a good job of hitting those tropes.
Yeah.
And so this is fairly recent as well, 2017. And so it feels like the kind of thing that could very much be older as well, more classic, but that it's fun to have these new stories that feel like they're not having to be I died and got reborn in a world, or I'm a word soup nonsense, or I'm trying to have some sort of deep, intense political commentary. That this is just a nice, fun, light
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. True fantasy. Just good old fashioned. Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's
Which
have
I'm
fantastic things happen.
quickly realizing is very much one of my favorite genres. I think I'm gonna start catching on to because I immediately think of Frieren
Yeah.
as also just pure fantasy. Certainly some more complicated themes in Frieren, but similar idea where it's a
Yeah.
story that's pretty easy to explain right away.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I've also seen them put add Dungeon Meshi to that, and then that's like the three fantasy. Like right now, like fantasy's having a big resurgence with this
hmm,
one, Free Ren, and yeah, Delicious Dungeon Meshi.
wow, that's exciting. So then everyone listening, get on board with fantasy. It's a
Yeah.
good time to be into manga and anime because that's a great genre that is really wonderful to watch as opposed to the died and reborn in a
Yeah.
world that we were stuck in thanks to Sword Art for a while there.
But that being said, there's still I think was like 10 isekais that came out this season alone.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
they're easy
Isekai
to ignore at
backlog.
least.
It's gonna keep coming out. No,
Yeah.
well, but Witch Hat, really nice to read. The art's also really great. It's
Yeah.
really imaginative and uh, really stunning as well. Again, sort of like we talked about with Hawkeye and that it's not trying to look super realistic. That's not what it's going for. It is almost like a classic. When you think of manga anime, it has that classic look. Where you
Yeah.
have the big eyes, you have the details in the hair, and I think that that's a again a great way to sort of sink people into manga anime.
Yeah. And also like if you look at the art, they go a lot deeper on the backgrounds and stuff than a lot of similar stuff. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. And like also especially doubly so because they're not using like photorealistic backgrounds. Because like a lot of other stuff will like use literal like photographs that get transferred into pictures. But this one, it's like very clearly like very intricately well drawn backgrounds and like
Hmm.
very well made, like the houses and the like carriages and stuff are all like very well, fantastic looking.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail in them. That's a great point. I'm thinking about towards the end when they go into the store and
Yeah.
that they have this beautiful tree and all these potions and you can see all the potions in the books and there's detail put into those scenes, which really helps with that immersion factor as well. I also love the magical system in this. I think
Yes.
that it's kind of shocking that we haven't seen something like this before, to my knowledge, because it seems so obvious. And that's again why it feels like it's almost a kind of classic thing that you would think that this was older, because how has no one thought about magic being drawing before?
Yeah.
Or at
And
least if
then
they have, that it hasn't hit mainstream to the same degree.
yeah, and they do a really cool job of like even in just the first volume, like when you learn that the shoes each have half of the magic seal on them. When you put them
Hmm.
together, they make the full seal. So then it actually activates the magic. It's a lot of cool stuff like that, and like how like if you draw the like parts, the little parts of the seal wrong, like water will shoot out in the wrong direction because you made this one longer than the other ones. Cool
Yeah,
stuff like that.
that there's rules that they learn and that there's ways to then apply it. And then we see her apply those rules when she comes up with making her boat fly, just based on her basic understanding, which is the same understanding we're given as well. And it makes it feel more real because it's just so simple and it's the kind of thing that it's easy to imagine. I think that's a big part of those appeals for those basic magic systems. If you have like a strong basic system put into a strong story, it seems like that's probably a recipe for success. I think about things like Avatar, where same basic thing. I mean, that's seems like what they always go back to. That's a good just go back to fire, water, earth, and air.
Mhm.
And if you
Yeah.
have those four elements and you then have those be somehow the factor of your system, whether that's Pokemon, whether that's Avatar, The Last Airbender, whether that's Witch Hat. It seems like that's a great way to have some of those base fantasy systems introduced because everyone understands that. Doesn't overcomplicate it. And
Yeah.
Pokemon gets more complicated,
Oh
obviously.
yeah.
But I just mean if we're talking about, if we think about Pokemon at its base level, and you have your three starter Pokemon, and that's your
Yep.
introduction to that system.
Yes.
Uh,
And then
Similar
they
thing
add 15
here.
more types.
And then they have 15 more types, and you have to try and remember how do ghosts and fairies interact. And
Oh God.
I always forget which way that one goes.
Oh, because Barry's strong against dark? Oh,
Yeah, that dark and ghost and poison are
yeah.
three different
Because
things.
that one, because I was just remember because Fairy type made it so Sableye and Spiritomb aren't full immunity anymore, aren't no weaknesses anymore. So it's one of the two of them. Which one is it? Oh.
I'll take your word for it. Uh, but I think that that's really great. And I can imagine why that's fun for young readers to read as well, and that they can then draw their own seals and we can see her uh, creating those seals and understanding what's happening. That
Yeah.
it's not just magic is happening, take our word for it. That, which is funny, which is how she understands the world to start. But
Yeah.
then it's like, no, there's a system behind this. Here's the logic system. And it's something that we can learn as well and engage with. which makes it a really engaging story as well.
Hit the
It's
nail on the
great.
head.
There you go. And so, how far into it have you read
I've
already?
actually only read the first two volumes. It's something I've been meaning to get more into. Now, I guess it would be very easy to just pick one up and read one while I'm working these days.
Oh, you're
And
hanging
that's
out at the
is one of
store.
the advantages of working owning a comic book store. But yeah, never only read the first two. Definitely need to
Well,
read all of them at some point. But yeah.
something to get in on then, especially as you were saying before, that the anime is coming out soon.
Yes.
I
Um,
assume that when it comes to popular manga, it's kind of become inevitable that an anime will
yes.
follow.
At some yeah. Like sometimes it takes a while. Like this is a perfect example. The first volume came out in like I think it was yeah. First volume came out in 2016 in Japan.
Mm,
So it's been yeah, 8 years. But eventually it'll
have
happen.
some alarming news for you. It's
Yeah.
2025.
Oh yeah. 9 years.
Ah, but that's a good point. I wonder, and because of the volumes, it's not that it wasn't popular at first. It must have always been popular, but that sometimes it just takes a while to get going. And I guess that can also build up a bigger audience, more hype for it as well.
Yeah.
So that's why you were saying that it's likely going to be a very popular show as well, if it already has a lot of background for it, and that again, it is also accessible. At the same time, I do wonder because, or no, I guess that also, I was going to say when if the audience is maybe sometimes younger, but One Piece is also meant for like a younger audience, and it's the biggest anime in the world. So it's not like if that's just because that's where the roots are, that is therefore a prohibitive of other age ranges engaging with the content as well.
Yeah. Also, actually, a fascinating thing. When I was just reading this moment ago, looking at it, looking something up, and so this is actually a seinen manga.
I was reading that as well, and
And so it's like weird.
I according to who though?
Well, so that just means that's the magazine it's printed in. So
Interesting.
so I mentioned this before. Yeah, manga is released in like big phone book size magazines, which have like 20 or so uh stories in them that come out either every week or every month. So, and each of them is either it's a shonen magazine, a seinen magazine, a shoujo magazine, or a josei magazine. And so shonen's younger man, seinen older man, shoujo younger woman, josei older woman. So
That
this
was
magazine
very confusing. So,
basically
but
okay,
I under okay, let's slow it down. So first, shonen,
shonen,
younger male.
younger male. And younger doesn't mean like kid, it means like 12 to 15-year old.
Okay. And shonen, that's where you hit your
Yeah.
Narutos, your One Pieces, your Hunter x Hunters,
Yeah, your Chainsaw Man's, your
your
Attack on Titan.
Chainsaw Man.
Yep. Oh yeah, check out Chainsaw Man is in Shonen Jump. Same with the rest of them.
Oh no.
Yeah. Attack on Titan. So like that's what I'm saying. It has a long. There's a. It doesn't mean for just necessarily like for kids.
That's so surprising because you would think that you would get a Shonen Jump comic for younger kids, but if
Yeah.
it has that kind of content in there, that's not good. Okay. Interesting. So it's more meant for young adults. Okay.
Yeah. And then Seinen's is like your Berserks, your Vinland Sagas, but then
What?
also, like your Kagayu-sama, Love is War.
That's
Like less
so confusing. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I understand the concept of that, but now I'm having to wrap my head around why is Witch Hat in that?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't have a good answer either. Like, I would have assumed this was like a shoujo one or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this seems like a whole other episode is understanding how manga gets slotted into these. Okay. So then this is allegedly a seinen, at which point this entire system seems to be discredited. And what was the next one you had said?
Shoujo. So that's
Shoujo.
younger girls. So that's like Sailor Moon or
Card Captor Sakura.
Cardcaptor Sakura or like yeah, anything by Clamp. Yeah. So like lots of magical girl stuff, lots of romance stuff.
And then
Shoujo's
what's
probably the one that like feels the most like defined of all of them.
hmm,
Like, yeah, well, like it's not always necessarily truly a romance, but even like you watched oh what's card one?
Chihara Furu?
Shahara Furos. Yes, exactly. Thank you for picking that up on me making a slapping motion. Uh,
That's all good.
yeah, but like that's kind of example of like that's like a shoujo sports manga.
Okay. Interested. Interesting.
Yeah,
What's the
and then there's Josei, which is the last one, which is famously never gets a anime adaptation of it, no matter how popular it is, which is an entire other thing to go with. But Josei is definitely like the least the one that has the least amount of crossover appeal, like the one the least amount of gets picked up read by people outside of its demographic.
okay. And are
Yeah.
these company names?
On the demographics. So each of the it's a magazine. So like which Hat Atelier is by Morning Casey, apparently.
Okay. And then they
Yeah.
just work together under some so it's not that Shonen Jump is a brand, but Shonen itself is not. Okay.
Yes.
I understand to some degree. I'm sure that hopefully if this is all gibbledy gobbledy goop to you listening, maybe you learned something new. There was a
Yeah.
lot of
So
things
yeah, that
thrown
was
in
our
there.
10-minute digression about how manga gets classified.
It's a combination of learning for everyone. I'm sure there were some pieces in there that we also could have expanded on further. But there you go. Witch Hat, oddly, but with the adult men group, I don't want to think about that too hard. Uh, fully don't grasp that, but
Yeah.
who
But
knows?
like at the end of the day, it is like irrelevant to the grand scheme of things. Like
Hmm.
just because it came originally in a Seinen magazine doesn't mean an 8-year-old girl would love it.
That's, I mean, proven by the book sale that you came
Yeah.
across. Case in point.
Yes.
And certainly I would echo that again as well. That really anyone who reads it would really enjoy it, regardless of age. And so you've only read the first two volumes, but I am getting the impression this is not a Made in Abyss or a Madoka Magica or a.
No.
Okay.
No, like danger. Well, like you saw it ends with a dragon showing up. So
Hmm.
like it gets dangerous and exciting. But no, there is no Coco at no point has to tearfully cut off what's her name's Agot's arm or something. Well, to get stop the poison from nothing like that happens.
Yeah, so for anyone unfamiliar with the two titles I just named, they essentially start as lighthearted adventures and get extremely dark and
Extremely dark.
extremely dark and upsetting. And that's kind of the purpose, is that it starts off innocent and then becomes extremely uh, disturbing. But that is not the case for Witch Hat. Witch Hat is just going to be a positive ride the whole way through.
Yeah.
So normally I ask, why did you choose it? But I think we probably answered that to some degree. Unless, was there any other reason? You had originally mentioned that you had chosen it because it's going to be having that anime adaptation coming out over the summer. But was there anything that made you think, hey, this could be a good one to chat about?
Yeah, well, I also thought it would be a good way to like let's get like a first volume of a let's get a first volume of a continuously going one. Like let's have a start like let's talk about one of those to start with. And I figured because it was you knew absolutely nothing about it and it had the anime coming up, I thought it was a good start point. And like
Mhm.
so far you've enjoyed everything I've recommended. So always
So
try to
far,
pick
so
ones that are
good.
good. So we'll see how long
Yeah,
that keeps up for. But
I think that it'll likely. I think I just enjoy having another option for uh, consumption of media. That if it's a good story, I'm always going to enjoy it. I also am finding that I value the art form a lot more than I used to, paying a lot more attention to the actual visual form, not just the written word. So making it really rewarding in that way as well. I think also the fact that we are focusing in this book club on stories that can be read in isolation is also really important because I think that that's a fast way to lose someone is, as we discussed in our Hawkeye episode, is just throwing them in the middle of things, and mise en scène, and it's not fun to read
Oh yeah.
because it feels like you're being left out. And the fact, as long as I don't feel left out and I feel engaged and welcomed in, I will continue to enjoy the things that you've selected for now. We'll see. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Statistically speaking, at some point, I'm going to recommend something that just does not sit well with you.
Doesn't land yet,
Yeah.
but
It'll.
I would say the I think what's great is that these are all things that I think are big within the worlds they exist in inside of the cultures that they exist in, but that necessarily haven't become pronounced outside of those groups, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, for example, like this is clearly very big, very popular, but because I don't read manga at all outside of this, I had not heard of this.
Yeah.
With Hawkeye, that's the biggest, one of the biggest graphic novels and superhero stories, but not engaged with graphic novels, so I had no idea. So, nice to be able to have these opportunities to find out about some of these things that did not break into the mainstream in the same outside of the specific form they already exist in.
Yeah.
And but as I become more immersed in this and I build up more opinions and biases, we'll see how things slowly devolve and I become one of the infamous bitter armchair warriors ready to
How about how much better it used to be?
yeah, exactly. That this is all terrible now and that it was peak in I don't know. What do people argue as peak? That
Well, it's whenever you
superhero
were a
stories
teenager.
peaked in the 60s, yeah.
It's whenever you were a teenager. So
I was
yeah,
reading
it was
something.
all Civil War, Marvel Civil War. That was the high point of comic books for you.
Question. Was that in 2016? I'm going fully no context.
No, that was like
But
2005.
okay.
So like you were like 14 when that came out.
Got it.
Yeah, and like actually, because more to the point, back like that was like one of the big things back when we were teenagers reading comic books. That was one of the
Hmm.
big events that was going on.
Okay. Yeah, I am we're gonna I think we're gonna start sidelining a little bit, but I think that I read somewhere that 2016 is when everything started to go sideways, and I'm a fan of that because that was when we lost Harambe,
Ah, yes.
and after we lost Harambe, the world just went downhill.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, but all of that to say, all the more reason that fantasy coming back is nice to
Yes.
be able to help us have a little bit of escapism. There's a reason that Harry Potter is like one of the biggest name recognitions in the world
Yeah.
because fantasy and magic is something that really is like immortal immersion. Um, and really Harry Potter, it doesn't stop. We tried the first episode of the Harry Potter baking show.
I did not even know that was a thing.
But at the same time, it's not surprising. It was an hour and a half premiere. I think we gave up after 45 minutes. It's not worth it.
They're doing
But
the Harry Potter like prestige television show that's going to do one season a book.
oh man, get
Yeah,
hyped.
get hyped.
Milk it
Which
as long as
like
they can.
good luck trying to fit the entirety of the Philosopher's Stone into an entire season. Like
Yeah.
that book's like 180 pages.
See how much you can really draw it out. Uh, but to wrap it up, Witch Hat, great read.
Yeah.
I would certainly be keen to introduce this to even people in the younger generation. I think kids would love this as well, which I think is part of the fun of reading it. But that I really think it's the kind of thing that, as you've expressed, it'd be fun to continue reading as an adult as well. See where the story goes from here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Highly recommended.
Highly recommended. And if you are interested in picking it up, of course, it is available at VesperiaComics.com
Yeah.
or in person at Vesperia
We,
Manga and
we have
Comics.
we have all 13, 12, however many volumes it.
Unclear, but whatever is offered in
whatever the
English, you
maximum amount
have.
of volumes are, and like all 5 volumes of like the cooking spinoff. I don't know what the cooking spinoff's about, but it exists, and we have all the volumes of it.
Oh no. Okay. That sounds worrying that there's a
Yeah.
spin-off. But that's fine. I mean, I guess that's how media is these days.
Yeah.
How far can you use this name as we're talking about Harry Potter baking? There
Yeah.
you go.
Exactly.
There's some sort of Venn diagram crossover between fantasy and baking, I guess. But there you go. That's it for Witch Hat for
Yeah.
the past 2 weeks book club. But of course, we also like to talk about some of the other content that we've consumed over the past couple of weeks. So, what about it, Spence? Any movies, TV shows, games, or books that have stood out to you over the
Yeah.
past few weeks?
I decided like kind of on a whim to get like really into Hajime no Ippo, the anime. Do you know that
Gee, I
one?
don't know. I don't know what this is.
Hajime no Ippo is like it's not even like the classic because there's Tomorrow Joe, but it's like the middle. It's like the super long running boxing anime and manga.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. How's
Because
that going?
honestly, it's kind of great. Because like I've always been of the opinion boxing, the sport, is terrible. It's so boring to watch, but fictional boxing is so like is the absolute height of like sports movies and stuff. Like
Hmm.
the Rocky movies, legitimately, they're of the nine Rocky movies, eight of them are like 8 or 10 or better.
Wow.
So like boxing's great. And this is really like a great taking boxing the anime. It's like really well
Hmm.
paced. What it's like 1 to 2 episodes to like prepare for the fight, then 1 to 2 episodes of the fight. Kind of like, yeah, it's really,
Ah,
yeah.
there you go. Interesting. Hajime no Ippo. I don't know if I've ever heard someone call boxing boring. I've heard people take issue with boxing for other reasons, but it not
But
being.
it's the thing, if you actually like watch boxing, like by like the like 10th round, it's like two guys who are barely conscious, like slowly trying to punch each other.
Usually more think of that as sad and tragic than boring, but I
It could be
understand.
both.
That's true. It can be both. But there you go. So you would recommend both Hajime no Ippo as well as the Rocky movies, except for
Yes.
one. Which one are you not
Rocky
recommending?
5 is the bad. Like
Okay,
this
skip
is
Rocky
not.
Five.
Yes, Rocky 5 is terrible. Every other Rocky movie is great, including all three Creed movies.
I was gonna say, what about the Creeds? Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. I have seen none of them, but
Really?
yeah,
Wow. That's yeah. Rocky
there you go.
the final fight of Rocky 2. Like that's like the peak like one of the peaks of cinema.
One of the most important. Okay. Yeah, so for our next graphic novel, you need to go watch Rocky 2. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen Gearless Joe?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well the show Megalobox is the name of the show. Hero
Oh,
shows
that's right.
the main character. And yeah, I've
Okay.
watched both seasons of that. Both absolute mess. Yeah, both of them. Great.
Interesting. So you're into uh
Yeah, like I said, fictional boxing is
fictional
awesome.
boxing is
Real
your
boxing
jam.
sucks.
That's Matt. I love that you're just absolutely unrestrained opinion on these things. Okay, Hejime no Ippo. There you go. Boxing
Yeah.
recommendation from Spence, or watch the Rocky movies. You got a couple options.
Yeah.
Uh,
How about
f-
yourself?
yeah, on my end, not too much to be honest. I'm finally catching up on White Lotus because third season is coming out now. So I finished first season. I'm working my way towards the end of second season. It's just classic great HBO. I think that when HBO knows what I mean, HBO almost always knows what they're doing. So it's a great watch.
Until you get to
Uh,
the end of Game of Thrones.
yeah, we don't talk about that. But it's, do you know much about White Lotus?
I've heard of it, but no.
Mhm.
Like I knew it was an
Yeah,
HBO show, but that's basically the extent of it.
it's pretty simple. It's that the White Lotus is essentially a five-star hotel chain. And it's so the first season is based in the Hawaii location, second season's in Italy, third season is in Thailand. And so
Oh.
it's about all these super uber wealthy people coming to this hotel. And the way it always starts off is in the very first scene, there's been someone has died
Oh.
at the hotel. And then it does a week earlier. And so it's great because you have this mystery. You know, one of these characters is going to die, or plural, apparently in Italy, but you don't know who it is until the final episode. So
Interesting. So
it's a
like, does it have a reoccurring cast season to season, or a whole new cast
there's
each
been
time?
one recurring cast, which is well, I don't know about I don't think that they're in season three. I'm not sure, but Jennifer Coolidge is the only person that exists in season one and season two. Um, Jennifer Coolidge is, of course, essentially just playing the classic Jennifer Coolidge character. So that's really enjoyable. And obviously, there's a lot of great commentaries there in terms of just wealth and privilege and exploitation and just how terrible people in positions of power are to those that are
Mm,
not in positions of power. And uh, it's a great watch. They're also very short seasons, which I appreciate. I want to say the first season you see there's 6 to 8 episodes.
okay.
Same with second season. So
Nice. Yeah.
great little watch throughs. Um, Great music as well. I think that's a big part of it is just the audio of them is so well done. And also I think that they're going to be able to keep on getting them out because they're really popular. They're also not CGI. And so you essentially
Don't
just
don't
have
don't don't have to animate a don't have to animate dragons.
exactly. Yeah. So immediately, I just always think about how much does something cost to make, and these days it's essentially just around what's your CGI budget. So
Yeah.
even if you're in like this gorgeous location in Italy, the fact that you don't have to shoot CGI and you're just one location base,
Yeah.
I imagine that that's a huge budget save.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, absolutely would recommend checking out The White Lotus, especially that season three is now coming out. Um, Another season three I see coming out is Yellow Jackets. You didn't see Yellow Jackets, I don't think.
No, I don't even know what this one is. You said Yellow
Uh,
Jacket, I immediately thought of the Ant-Man persona that Hank Pym did.
there you go. Yeah, Persona callback to Metaphysica from last episode. But Yellow,
Metaphor Refantasio?
yeah, that's the one. But Yellow Jackets, I don't want to talk about Yellow Jackets too much. It's another HBO show. It's about a group of it's a high school girls soccer team gets lost in the Canadian woods and
Oh,
they have to survive the winter.
wow.
And
Is it a
season one is
comedy?
hardcore no.
Oh,
Season
wow.
because season because it's really like realism based to a degree. So like how do you think they're going to survive the winter?
Yeah.
Um and the correct answer is they have to eat one another. And so
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's brutal. So season 1 is like really good, really dark, really well done. Season 2 it's awful.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Uh,
things how you can see the writer's room has changed and it's not
mm,
good. And then now season three's out and it's like it's the season 2 writer room, so it's going to be terrible still. So maybe I'll get
too
into
bad.
it. We'll see. But the only other thing I wanted to mention is a man on the inside, which I'm sure again falls outside of what I think you would normally watch. Uh, but have you heard about a man on the inside at all, or
No,
just
not in the
okay?
slightest.
Totally fair. Um, so a man on the inside, it's the most recent show from Michael Schur. Do you recognize that name?
No, I do not.
Okay, Michael Schur is the writer of pretty much every big sitcom in the past like 10, 15 years. Name, what do you think is the biggest sitcom since like, okay, other than don't say Big Bang Theory. So
I was
ignore
about
Big
to,
Bang,
I was about to say
ignoring
Big Bang
Big Bang
Theory.
Theory. So in the past 20 years, so he was the writer on The Office,
Okay.
Parks and Rec,
Mhm.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Good Place, and now A Man on the Inside.
Okay, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
That's an insane resume.
Yeah.
To have written Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, and The Good Place, all of which ran for over well, Good Place ran for 4 years, but the other ones ran for 6 to 8 years, is
Yeah.
wild. Like, what an incredible
Yeah.
resume.
But we would have been a bunch of those ran concurrently too. So
Yeah, exactly. There was some crossover with those as well. So yeah, he's creator, writer. I don't know exactly his credits on all those. I'm sure there's also other people involved with them,
yeah.
obviously, but no, not all of The Office. But
Yeah. The Office ran for
clearly,
a really long time. Don't forget. It was like 8 or 9 seasons, I think.
yeah. So Michael Schur clearly knows what he's doing. Same with A Man on the Inside. I think what's really great about A Man on the Inside as well as Good Place, which are the two more recent ones. Technically, yeah, I guess Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Good Place were the same time, but um, it's clear that there's an exploration into wanting to do a little bit more content-wise instead of just be a base sitcom. Are you familiar? You didn't watch The Good Place, I imagine. Again,
No,
I think
but
that this is.
this yes, this is how I don't watch that much television that isn't animated.
Mhm,
Yeah, no, like, but I know the concept of it, and I guess
mhm.
I've been spoiled for the ending of the first season.
There you go. Okay, yeah. So you know what happens with. So I
Yeah,
mean, the fact that it's a sitcom that has an incredible plot twist is
yeah.
already pretty impressive. But uh, I think that there's something. If you were to probably ask him, he would say that The Good Place is, I imagine, what he's most proud of because. Um, so all of this to say, A Man on the Inside. So it's about this. Older man in his either 70s or 80s whose wife passes away. And so he doesn't know what should do with his life. And so his daughter really tells him to like find a hobby, do something. And the hobby he ends up finding is that he goes undercover into a retirement home to find a jewelry thief. And that's the setup.
Okay.
And so
Huh.
you, and so it's this great mix of comedy where you have it's a retirement home, so you have all these old folks, and there's great humor set up, but that there's also a lot of obviously some intense emotion and a lot of deep navigation there around loss that his wife had dementia.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and so it's I think that seems to be the direction that he's going to be using sitcom as like a introduce these heavier themes because yeah, the finale of this show absolutely got to me a little bit for
Oh,
sure.
wow.
I don't often react. There's a very small list of things that I have reacted emotionally to, and uh, the man on the inside gets to be on towards the bottom of that list. It wasn't a lot, but it's on there for sure. Um, the ending, I mean, what's wild is he also wrote The Good Place. The ending of The Good Place, oh, probably top three.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
the ending of The Good Place is exceptional. It's great. It's hard. It's a hard one. Uh,
Interesting. And it didn't realize because from what I've heard about the Good Place, like didn't realize it hit those highs.
yeah, it's super funny. I mean, it's not that that's throughout the whole thing. It's just recognizing that ultimately The Good Place is about death. It's about people in the afterlife.
Yes.
And so it is like a heavy topic, but it's treated really comically for the duration of it until the ending. I think it's really just the last episode or two
Okay.
that's just really beautiful and extremely sad. Which I mean is certainly speaks to skilled writing. So yeah, I'd probably put it up there. To tie it back to some of the content that we talk about as well, the top three for me, I've been thinking about this, is like The Good Place is probably number three. Number two, I'd do like The Green Mile. As a kid,
Okay.
Green Mile messed me up.
Oh yeah. No fair.
I think it would also mess me up as an adult. I don't want to rewatch Green Mile. I don't think I could handle it.
Mm,
But then number one, the thing that has by far the most ruined me emotionally was A Silent Voice.
that's
I,
a good. Yep.
for those unfamiliar, this is why it ties back. This is a manga that got adapted into an anime movie about the bullying of a deaf girl and
Yeah.
the
Yes.
fault.
It's yes. As the literal plot is, it's like a suicidal teenager tries to reconnect with the deaf girl he bullied as a child. It's like
Yeah.
just saying that. It's like wow. Okay, that sound like yeah.
Ooh, it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. Boy, is it ever. And that
Yeah.
there's like also additional aspects to that that make it worse that has to do like with like abuse and things. And so, yeah, that one messed me up for days. Like
Hmm.
unlike anything I've ever seen. This
Yeah.
also wasn't that long. This was maybe like 5 years ago that it came out or something.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it was like 2018 or something like that.
there you go. Yeah. But boy, I hope we don't
Yeah.
read I mean, maybe we should read a silent. Is that a one
Um,
shot? Probably.
no, it's only 7 volumes long.
Oh, thank God. Okay, we're not going to read a seven voice. Phew, sweat off
With
my
that being said,
brow.
we do have all 7 volumes of
Uh,
Vesperia Manga and Comics.
there you go. So if you're looking for an absolutely devastating emotional read,
Yeah.
to
You
go.
saying that makes me think, okay, I think my three that hit me the hardest are Forrest Gump at number 3,
Hmm.
Number two is the ending of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. That is not a joke. 100%.
Wow.
And then number one is I think it's episode 10 of Violent Evergarden. Did you watch Violent Evergarden?
Oh,
The one with the
yes.
little girl.
I don't remember it well enough that that's probably for the best.
Yeah, it's the one with the little girl and the mom, and that absolutely wrecked me.
Interesting. I I do remember I don't remember Violet Evergarden super well, but I do remember that it wasn't just that episode, but there's like a number of
Oh, there's a number
episodes.
of, that episode just hits harder. Like there's a bunch of great like Violet Evergarden's great, but that episode in particular just hits so hard.
Hmm. Okay, there you go. These are our fun recommendations. If
Yeah,
you're wanting to
if you want
just,
to get emotionally devastated.
yeah, if you want to just fall apart, Man on the Inside is the more recent on the lighter side. And then if you really want to get messed up, Violet Evergarden, the story about the former war machine turned general housekeeper,
Well, letter
uh,
writer is her job. She writes
letter
letters for
writer.
people.
That's what she does. Yeah.
Yeah, she
Former
writes
war
letters for
machine
people.
turned letter writer, um, or a silent voice. There are some recommendations if you're looking to shed some tears for a couple of days and just get shaken up. What fun recommendations we
Yeah,
have this time. Very hard turn from where we started with Witch Hat.
yeah, but I don't know. Who knows? We have no control over this. The
That's
wheels are
true.
off. We
Yeah,
go where it tells us to.
exactly. There you go. We start on the light, joyous. Anyone should engage with these of Witch Hat and end on. I don't know if I can recommend these things because I feel bad to anyone I would recommend it. Uh, but all of that said, we're winding down towards the end of the episode. But of course, as we do, we need to introduce what's next on the reading docket. So, Spence, what do the fine folks at home and I get to look forward to reading next?
Yes. So, like with last, we're going back to the graphic novels west from the West, and this time we'll be doing what I originally wanted to do for our first one. We'll be doing Welcome Back, Frank, a Punisher story.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Specifically, it's a Punisher one by Garth Ennis. So, Garth Ennis is perhaps I'll get judged by saying this, but he is my favorite comic book writer. Um, and for things you'll probably be known for, he was the original writer for The Boys.
Oh no.
But don't. But here's the thing about Garth Ennis. Garth
Okay.
Ennis is best when he has someone holding him back a little bit.
Okay.
Boys the comic book. We are never going. I would never recommend anyone read The Boys the comic book. Just watch the show. It's much better. But that was him having full, true creative control.
Hmm.
With this, it's him getting people holding him back a little bit. He still doesn't like superheroes very much, which kind of works great for the Punisher because the Punisher's not really a superhero. But it's just yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. What do you think?
Okay. Welcome back, Frank.
Yeah.
All right. And I guess that's just the title of it. So it's
Yeah,
easy enough to be
it
able
was I
to.
think a mini series just called like The Punisher originally, and then
Ah,
now the complete volume is known as Welcome Back, Frank.
the Punisher. Welcome back, Frank. There you go. The only thing to add on there, I wouldn't recommend The Boys to anyone either. There's very specific people to recommend that show to.
That's fair, but those very specific people are going to very much enjoy it.
That's true. For context, The Boys is an extremely over-violent show on Prime about
Yeah,
superheroes, but that it is absolutely excessively violent. But I'm
incredibly
super
excessively
curious
wild.
about
And then the comic is so much worse.
that.
Like
Just
so much worse.
absolutely horrifying. Yeah, terrifying to think about. But the I'm curious to read Welcome Back, Frank
Yeah.
about the Punisher because I also think that the Punisher is also a character that just gets misunderstood, or like people don't really think about what he actually represents, so that it's sort of become this
Yes,
symbol
that
of
is an entire other conversation that we will no doubt have next time.
how
Because
exciting.
the Punisher really is a very interesting thing, and it'll be very interesting to look at this one because this is a slightly more light-hearted look at the Punisher. But you'll see. You'll read it.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. This isn't going to be a Hawkeye Schleppy landlord situation again.
No,
Maybe
no.
it is. Lighthearted, and then
Like
there's
for
going to be like
example,
murder in the first 5 pages.
oh, there will be much. This is still the Punisher we're talking about. There will be so much murder through every page.
Oh no.
It'll
Okay.
just be lighthearted about it at certain
Uh,
points.
okay. As long as it's still treated with tact and not with absolute brutality, but we'll chat about it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So the March 15th episode, Welcome Back, Frank. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I'm going to guess that this is much more of a mature comic. The Punisher
Yeah.
by its nature is violent, but um, if that is something that you are interested in, the exact opposite end of the spectrum from Witch Hat. We're just flying all over the place today. But if you want to go check it out, go check out Vesperia Manga and Comics in beautiful British Columbia, or go on to VesperiaComics.com to order Welcome Back, Frank, with Canada-wide shipping. Of course, we also realize that buying a new book every 2 weeks isn't always financially viable for everyone, so you could consider inviting a friend to split costs, or borrowing the book from a friend, or go to a local library to see if it's available. And that's it for episode number 4 of the Long Comics Book Club. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow our Blue Sky and Instagram for updates, as well as join our Discord to share your own thoughts on Witch Hat Atelier or Welcome Back, Frank. Next week's the podcast
Two
coming
weeks
out.
is.
Yeah, coming out in 2 weeks on March 15th. And we will talk to you then.
See ya.
Bye bye.